I wonder who my political heir will be. Let's face it though, this face, they broke the mold. Whether President Donald Trump wins the second term this fall or loses to former Vice President Joe Biden, it's virtually impossible to imagine him and the movement he has created disappearing really anytime soon. And that reality means that there will be a fight within the Republican Party to be the next Donald Trump, or since the 45th president views himself as a once-in-a-generation or many generations figure, the heir to the Trumpian political legacy at least. And make no mistake, that fight, it's already begun. So I've come up with a potential list of contenders vying for that Trumpian position. Sidebar, Donald Trump could run again if he loses in 2020. Keep that in mind. All right, first up on my list is Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. Following the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Tom Cotton made massive waves with an op-ed in the New York Times in which he argued that the military should be used or could be used to end protests. Quote, "But the rioting has nothing to do with George Floyd, whose bereaved relatives have condemned violence. On the contrary, nihilist criminals are simply out for loot and the thrill of destruction, with cadres of left-wing radicals like Antifa infiltrating protest marches to exploit Floyd's death for their own anarchic purposes. These rioters, if not subdued, not only will destroy the livelihoods of law-abiding citizens, but will also..."
Much awaited tell-all book from President Trump's niece, Mary Trump, is going to be hitting bookshelves 2 weeks earlier than expected. The Trump family had sued to stop the publication. Well, now CNN has seen a copy. Let me bring in CNN's Sarah Murray. Sarah, what can you tell us about this?
Kate, we did just get a copy of the book. It's a pretty slim 14-chapter read, but it is quite the indictment of President Trump from a member of his own family. You know, we haven't heard a lot from the direct members of the Trump family. This is a book that is coming from Mary Trump, who is his niece. It is a book that one of the president's siblings has actually tried to block from publishing, but the publisher got the release to go forward. And, you know, we're looking through some of these things, and in it you see Mary Trump writing about the hubris of her uncle. She writes about how she didn't actually think that he was taking his presidential election seriously. And she even had lunch at one point with Marianne Barry Trump, who was a federal judge, and they're discussing Donald Trump running for president. This is back in 2016. And it recounts this conversation in which Marianne Trump says, "He's a clown." This is what the book said. "He's a clown," my Aunt Marianne said during one of our regular lunches at the time. "This will never happen."
There is growing concern that the coronavirus may spread farther than previously thought in those tiny airborne particles we keep hearing about. It's commonly understood that those particles, for example, from a sneeze, can spread up to 6 feet without a mask. But more than 200 scientists are now urging the WHO to reconsider their guidance on that when it comes to indoor spaces. Our chief medical correspondent, Dr. Jon LaPook, spoke with 2 of the scientists.
Researchers around the world say the evidence is clear. The coronavirus is likely airborne. When we cough or sneeze, larger airborne droplets containing virus can travel, usually up to about 6 feet. But smaller particles can be emitted simply by talking or singing and can go much farther and linger in the air for hours.
They don't fall to the ground in 6 feet, and they can remain in the air for hours and potentially infectious for hours.
What would you like the WHO to do?
Acknowledge that the risk goes beyond 6 feet.
Dr. Don Milton co-wrote the letter signed by nearly 240 scientists from around the world. How certain are you that aerosols are playing a significant role in the transmission of COVID-19 past, say, 6 to 8 feet?
You look at the restaurant outbreak in Guangzhou, several bus outbreaks in China, and it's clear that one person could infect people over much more than 6 feet.
In some circumstances, those aerosols can travel more than 30 feet. Each layer of protection helps, like this cloth mask that partially blocks an aerosol from a simulated cough. What implication does that have for somebody in their home or in their office indoors?
You need to have everybody wearing masks who are not in the same bubble, and that you need to have good ventilation.
Improved ventilation systems are a top priority for New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo.
If there is a way to filter the air and there's a way to get COVID out of the air, then we want to do that.
Dr. Jon LaPook joins us now. John, we're so hung up.
There's no such thing as a free ride. And as the U.S. debt to GDP ratio takes off and goes to new highs, is this borrowing going to be too much, or can we avoid a debt trap? I think the answer is no. You can't avoid the debt trap. The Fed has told you that. They'd rather make sure that the economy is up and going right now so that you have an economy that you can fix rather than seeing one crater. The problem is getting out of this problem is going to take decades. We have underfunded Social Security. We're going to be putting in, as we all know, more infrastructure programs. We've got to keep the economy going. We have a COVID-19 situation that at best is still questionable. So we have all that, and you have to ask yourself, where do we go from there? In the end, it's called inflation. The Fed wants it, they're going to get it, and unfortunately, it is a debt trap.